Welcome back to the Wellness Abundance podcast. I'm so excited to have my guest here today, Candace Eddy Rhodes. Candace and I were friends way back when and recently reconnected over social media. And when I learned the work that she does as a therapist, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to invite her onto the podcast. And I'm going to let Candace, share more details about what she does. So this is a really special interview for me and conversation because Candace and I go way back, and just the work that Candace does is incredibly important and meaningful and really helps women and just people in general improve their health and wellness from a mental health perspective. So welcome, Candace.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this is exciting. When you reached out, I was just excited to reconnect with you in general. And honestly, same, like I felt the same way about the work that you do and sort of this platform you've created to tap into all the holistic ways that women can take care of their overall well-being. So I'm just, really delighted to be here and to talk about the trauma work specifically that I do and sort of the populations that I work with, but primarily today, I think the moms that I serve in my practice. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Great. So if you would, maybe just start with a little bit about what inspired you to get into trauma therapy.
I feel like we could honestly spend an entire podcast episode on that question alone. So
it's a loaded question, right?
Yeah, I'll probably take you on a little bit of a journey through my sort of career path, if that's okay. But it feels important because I think everything in my life has come a bit full circle. So I was thinking a little bit about when I started, and I couldn't believe that I started my social work career in 2005, and it's 2025, and I thought, wow, I've been doing this for 20 years. I sort of didn't even really stop to think about that. But so when I was in school for social work, in particular, I wanted to be a clinical social worker, and I just wanted to serve children, adolescents, families. Primarily, I was interested in working with like underserved populations, under-resourced families and children. I had this really unique opportunity that sort of fell into my lap. I was taking a structural oppression class in my master's program, and we had to choose an oppressed population. And so I chose to write about and do a project all around teen parents, because it's a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, a population near and dear to my heart. I myself was a teen parent, and so I felt really just drawn to working with that group. And at the same time, there was this small charter school that had opened up. They were primarily serving pregnant and parenting teens. And I thought, what a cool opportunity. So I just showed up on their opening day to introduce myself and meet the director of that program. And we got to talking, and I shared a little bit about my story and my history. And he found out about my educational background and what was supposed to be a volunteer, like short-term position volunteer opportunity for this project in a class, ended up turning into a role as a high school teacher, which I really never had planned. So I became a high school teacher for 2 years at this school where we had all of the kids who were both pregnant, parenting, or otherwise at risk. So a lot of kids that were being kicked out of more traditional public school settings that were just having a hard time for, a variety of reasons. And we had a little daycare at the school, and it was just like a really unique opportunity. So while I was in grad school, I was also teaching those classes. And it was such a unique opportunity to really get to know the kids on a really like in-depth level. So you really just knew your students really well, and you understood like some of these kids were coming to school hungry, and some of them came from really traumatic backgrounds. And it became so important for me to teach early child development and parenting courses so that I had the opportunity to try to shift the trajectory and the generational trajectory of some of these students' lives. And so I fell in love with parenting work at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finished my graduate program, my first post-clinical job was as a lead therapist in a pediatric and adolescent units of a acute psychiatric hospital. So I got to work with kids who were really at risk and struggling in really significant and severe ways with their mental health. And at the root of almost all of it was some form of trauma, right? Whether it was PTSD or traumatic upbringing or something really tragic had happened in their lives or grief or loss, but it was manifesting behaviorally in lots of different kinds of ways. So we'd get kids with all kinds of diagnostic profiles, but often at the root and the core of it was this unresolved trauma and their systems being unable to kind of process the things that they had been through. And then from there, I worked in a group home setting. This was one of my favorite jobs ever. I worked in a group home setting with teenage boys and young adult men who had all been adjudicated for some sex crimes. And I remember at the time, everyone thought, oh, you're working with people who have offended. Like, how do you do that work? You know, it was a very stigmatized population. But it was such a cool rehabilitation, like group home setting where we had the kids in the community. And, you know, most of these kids who struggled with their boundary issues and behavioral addiction issues and mental health, what was at the core of that? You know, often their own sexual abuse trauma.
Yeah.
So how are you going to rehabilitate these kiddos and ensure that they are not offending anymore and not creating, you know, future victims without treating their PTSD and their trauma and their abuse history? So just every population that I worked with and every setting that I worked with, it was abundantly clear that trauma often lies at the root of all of these other mental health diagnoses. You know, we like to put labels on things, but more often than not, that's what's underneath all of it, right? So if you're not getting to the root problem, you're maybe maintaining, you know, or treating symptoms temporarily. And then from there, I went to a residential program, and that's where I started learning and becoming specialized in a treatment called dialectical behavior therapy. Are you familiar with DBT? Have you heard of it?
I'm not. So if you could just share a little bit about what it is, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, DBT, excuse me, dialectical behavior therapy is an evidence-based treatment for the treatment of people with really severe, what we call motion dysregulation. So this like inability to regulate their intensely sensitive emotions that often manifests in lots of different ways, like self-harm behaviors, suicidal ideation, things like that. So I was working in a locked residential facility we served kids from, I think, age 5 all the way up to 18. And we had a DBT unit, and I was where I got a lot of like phenomenal training at that time. And DBT is very skills-based. So it's a cognitive behavior therapy. And they teach like mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, interpersonal effectiveness skills. Just really critical skills that honestly all people need in our world.
Yeah.
But it breaks it down into the components and teaches people exactly how to use it. And DBT can be like absolutely life-changing. And at the same time, if there's underlying trauma, you're only kind of keeping things together for so long because trauma is insidious and can impact and kind of ripple throughout people's lives in so many different ways. So it was there that I realized that you have to do both. You have to like address these behaviors and teach these skills, but you also have to help people process some of the experiences that they've had. And that's when you see like true transformation happen. It's just really kind of incredible to see. So I just became really passionate about trauma work. And more recently, the kind of newest wave of DBT is DBT for PTSD, which is really exciting. So historically in the past, you had to get all of those out of control behaviors under control. And then you had to wait a period of time where there's stability and then go after trauma, which when you're treating trauma kind of destabilizes someone for a period of time because it brings everything back up to the surface. So a lot of therapists, understandably, are really scared to talk about trauma or to kind of reopen that when things are kind of have settled a little bit, understandably. But again, it's going to be kind of a temporary Band-Aid until you kind of get to that work. So I've become a trainer and a consultant in in that area. So I work with a ton of international teams that implement trauma treatment in their clinics. And that's actually been really exciting work because I can only do so much myself when working with clients with trauma. But so half of my practice is really training, consulting, and supporting other therapists who are doing this really intense work and this really intensive protocol, and so that they can help and serve their clients without getting burnt out. So that's really exciting to me, because if I help 50 therapists and they are able to help 10, 20, 30 clients, it's exciting to have sort of that kind of reach. So so that's how I've been kind of balancing out the work that I've been doing, and it's nice. It's created a little bit of a balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many different paths that we can go down with therapy, with mental health, because there's such a wide variety of issues and trauma that people go throughout their lives. And I actually really love that you worked with the people who, you said they went through sexual assault or were the assaulters. Is that what you were saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always believed that the people who do this, it's not normal for people to act like this and to sexually assault people. And these people shouldn't just be thrown in prison and basically be thrown away by society. They should be treated to, rehabilitate and, like you said, get down to the root cause of their trauma.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think it's so important. And there's so much hope for kids and youth. So I don't know the latest data because I haven't worked with that population in a long time, but at the time, maybe 10, 15 years ago, the recidivism rate, the rate at which, youth reoffend, is really low if they get proper treatment, right? So if they get good mental health care, good trauma treatment, if that's the story, the recidivism rate was like around 8%, where adults who have gone really far down that path and have never had intervention or treatment, it's unfortunately much higher, right? The rate of reoffending. So it was really important work. And it was important work both for the kids I was serving, but also if their parents were involved to bring them in. And I've just always felt really strongly that in order for treatment to be really effective for the kids, the parents have to be part of that process, which has sort of led me down this new path of focusing primarily with the parents of youth who have struggled in a variety of different ways, whether it's anxiety, depression, trauma, school refusal, self-harm, in and out of hospitals, whatever it is. I think when parents are given those tools and feel empowered and understand what's happening for their child, and they have the tools to manage their own emotions and reactivity, and can support their child in a validating way with healthy sort of structure and boundaries, you can see a positive change in the whole family system, which is exciting. So I started diving a little deeper into the parent work when I was at that residential program many years ago. We would do this 2-day super intensive DBT boot camp. One of my colleagues, Dr. Lucy Payne, she's incredible. She took a program called Family Connections that helps. It's like a grassroots organization started by Alan Frusetti, who helps train parents in the understanding of emotion dysregulation, or not just parents, but loved ones. And she took that sort of 12-week program and she condensed it into this really intensive 2-day boot camp. And we would lead it on a monthly basis, and we were getting families from all over the country. And so we would work with 30, 40 parents every single month for years. And she collected a lot of data and did a lot of research. And it was so clear that when parents understood emotion dysregulation and they had the tools and the skills to manage their own emotions and respond in effective ways, it had a huge impact on the prognosis of the child. So it was really cute. Even the kids would say, "We don't know what you did with our parents, but they're being really validating now, and it feels kind of weird, you know." And then by the end of their program, the new kids coming in, they'd be like, "Don't leave this program until your parents have done the parent weekend. It's so important."
Oh
So
my gosh.
I know it
That's
was really
so
cute.
cool. So the
They're
kids were
like,
advocating for the program. That's
yeah, they were. They
great.
had no idea. They're like, "We don't know what you do in there, but like, everyone has to go." And so yeah, they were. She was able to do this randomized control trial and look at sort of the kids whose parents went through the program and the kids whose parents were waitlisted, and compare and contrast their scores for distress, depression, anxiety, stress, all of those things. And yeah, treatment got better for the kids whose parents also had the treatment. So I've just felt it's really important, and I've integrated that into my work. And more recently, over the past couple of years, I've been focusing almost predominantly with the parents. I just think it's so important. I mean, there was a study that was done, and it was like a meta-analysis that was done in 2021 of parents of children who had a single incident trauma. So, and that could be a variety of different things. But when the child in the family has a traumatic event, the parent has up to like almost 20% chance of developing their own PTSD, even if the traumatic event didn't happen to them directly. So like trauma just can ripple through a family system, and vice versa. You know, if a parent is traumatized, it's going to inevitably impact the child, and vice versa. Yeah. And I don't know if you know the latest stats on mental health in the States, but it's like profoundly concerning. Like, I think it was 2023, maybe I might be wrong on the year, but the CDC, you know, they do these huge surveys, and they are looking at sort of mental health for youth across America. And in 2023, so post-pandemic, it was 20% of youth in the US had seriously contemplated suicide.
Wow.
And 9% had made an attempt in the last year.
Oh,
I know.
man.
I know. And it gets worse when you look at certain populations. So like teen girls, for example, it's like 30% seriously contemplated suicide, and 13% made an attempt. And when you look at the LGBTQ population of youth, 45% of those kids seriously contemplate suicide, and 20% make an attempt.
Wow.
I know. So then you think about how that impacts like the parents. And so there's just this growing body of evidence to support that like parents are actually developing their own PTSD from the mental crises of their kids, because, you know, if your child is self-harming or has had a suicide attempt, or, you know, all of the horrific things that happen for families that are going through like these kinds of crises. So it just becomes like profoundly important to like support the parents who I think historically have been kind of left in the dark, or judged or blamed or stigmatized. So I find that in my work, like so many of the parents, they don't talk about it. They don't tell anyone, you know, they feel, especially the moms I work with just carry so much guilt and so much shame. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So there's so much that
I know.
you,
I'm
so
saying
many
we're going to
great things.
have a part
And
series.
yeah, like you had mentioned in your email last week, like we could have probably 5 follow-up episodes with you
A
at
lot.
least.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, because I had a bunch of questions pop into my head as you were speaking. So I'm curious, have you looked at like the statistics, like the suicidal statistics from like when we were growing up versus kids today? Because things are different today.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't want to discount our traumas, because I had traumas as a kid growing up, you know, and a lot, thinking back, it had to stem from my parents' traumas, you know, like they're all intertwined in a way, like you were just talking about. So I definitely had my traumatic experiences as a child, but and I'm sure my siblings did as well. But have you looked at those statistics, like the comparison?
I think that's actually really such an interesting question. I haven't. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know that these problems have always existed. Self
Yeah.
harm has been around from the beginning of time, and certainly suicidality and suicide
Yeah.
attempts and completed suicides for sure. I think what has fundamentally shifted from my perspective is just
Mhm.
the openness and awareness of it, right? And
Mm,
there is growing um, concern and prevalence of a lot of these behaviors. And I think in part of, just the culture that we currently live in and the access
mhm.
to all this external information. I think a lot, in our generation, I think people were suffering silently and not
Yeah.
really talking about it and maybe not accessing mental health resources as often. So I think there was a lot happening, but I think it was flying under the radar and people were just less
Yeah.
aware and it was covered up and attempts were being talked about, right? Where now, like, kids can't do anything without it being like caught on video and like
Mhm.
imprinted World Wide
Yeah.
Web for end of time, So I think it's always been a problem. I think there's been a high prevalence. I don't know the difference in statistics, and I don't
Okay.
even know if the statistics would be
Right.
accurate back then. But I'm super curious now.
Yes.
I want to look back in the archives and think like what was sort of studied at that time. It'd be really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and one obvious reason why I brought that up in my mind is that just social media, and like you mentioned, things are all over the internet. We didn't have that. I mean, we had video games, we had game consoles, we had like the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment
Mhm.
System.
I'm
That
dating myself, but I had an Atari. Okay.
Oh my gosh, you had an Atari. We never had an Atari, but my husband had an Atari. So oh man, it was like pulling teeth to get my dad to get us a Nintendo system
Right.
because he
Hmm.
was so adamant, like, no, you're not going to play video games. Go outside and play with your friends,
Hmm.
which is what we did a majority of the
Yeah.
time. None of us were big gamers when we were younger, but I think about that, like kids these days have it so hard. I was just talking to a friend the other day and he was sharing a little bit about some challenges his teenage daughter is having. And I'm just like, the whole time he's like around our age. I think he's a little older than us, but it's like, man, when we were growing up, we didn't have social media. We weren't as teenage girls. Yes, we still had body image issues. Well, I don't want to speak for every
Yeah.
teenage girl our age, but I feel like most teenage girls do.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's more back then for us it was more like Cosmopolitan magazine and
Hmm.
Shape and all those other
Sure.
magazines that were available. Now it's just social media that
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
creates
Kids are
those. Yes.
inundated in sort of beauty standards and ideal. And
Mhm.
it's too
Yeah.
much, it's created this culture of like never being good enough. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I would say, so most of my career, I mean, in addition to working with families and parents, I've actually worked a lot with teenage boys and young adult
Mhm.
men. And though body image issues is just as prevalent, but it's less talked
Mm.
about, right? So
Oh yes.
all these mental health challenges are often equal, like 50-50, girls and boys, men and women. Not, it just the ways in which I think young girls and women are, or anyone who identifies as females, like more likely to get mental health support because, people are socialized to like be more emotionally expressive and ask for help, where young boys are socialized not to show emotion and not to be
Yeah.
sensitive and to be tough and not be weak. And so there's definitely like a gender socialization piece too, but it's
Yeah.
interesting. Everyone's being impacted, I think, by
Yeah.
just the accessibility that we didn't have.
Hmm.
I mean, we had to
Yeah.
like show up at a Taco Bell on a Friday night to find out like what was happening that weekend. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's
Oh,
texting and getting immediate response.
yeah. I have, oh my gosh. Yeah, that takes me back. Yeah. Back in the day, yeah, meeting up at Taco Bell, we Um, all
Plan.
those fast food places that were in that hub down the street, like 2 miles, 3 miles away from our high school, is like, yeah, that's where we met up at the AM/PM. I don't even know if that's still there, but
I haven't been there in a long time.
yeah. But yeah, so if you wouldn't mind just sharing maybe some more detail on how you work with the parents. Like,
Sure.
is it, I'll just let you dive in and share all the
Okay.
good details.
Yeah. So at one point, so I used to be the former clinical director of a residential program, a DBT program at McLean Hospital, which is affiliated with Harvard Medical School. And we opened a boys DBT program, which there had never really been one that was like that specialized and comprehensive for that population before. So it was really exciting. And we brought parent programming there as well. And after running that program during a pandemic,
Oh
needless
gosh.
to say, I was pretty burnt out. I loved the work, I loved the program, I loved my team, but it was just highly, highly, highly stressful and very burnout inducing to, I think, just work with that population during a global pandemic, right? So then we had to manage all of like the mask mandates and the testing and limit our census. And I could go on and on about all of that. But after doing that for a couple of years, I just realized that I was having like my own mental health and well-being was being pretty severely impacted and I really needed a change. So at that time, my husband had been offered an opportunity to work in the UK in Wales. And I was like, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And so I kind of didn't know what my next plan would be, but I just knew I needed a break from that like intensive 24-hour environment, being on call 24 hours a day and just managing sort of one crisis after another. And so, yeah, I kind of had this plan to really slow down and reevaluate, focus on my own wellness for the first time in my whole life, like catch up on, my own medical stuff and get into an actual exercise routine for the first time in my life that would be sustainable. And I had a small private practice and I was like, I'm going to keep it small and I'm going to work on some of these other projects. And at that time, I realized I cannot take these sort of high action, more intensive youth trauma cases or youth DBT cases. I just didn't feel comfortable doing that remotely at that time. I had already been doing remote work for about a year or so because of the pandemic, and I always had like a small private practice on the side. And so kind of got used to that, where I never in a million years thought I would do telehealth. Like I actually had really strong judgments about it before
Yeah.
we were in a position where we were sort of forced into it. And then I was like, oh, this is just as effective. Do I miss being in a room with someone? Sure. But there's actually like added benefits. So that's when I switched gears and predominantly started working with parents, because even though their children were in crises and having these mental health challenges, their children were being seen in person, had treatment kind of on the ground locally. And then I could support the parents with navigating sort of the hospital system or, treatment or, so yeah, I started working mostly with parents at that time. And I really fell in love with it. I'd always done it, but it was kind of on the side. Like I'd integrate the parents into the child's work as a way, or I'd do a lot of family therapy, but I had never really just worked with parents in this like more of a coaching role. And that became really exciting. So I use the same strategies and the same principles of DBT, and I teach the same skills, but adapt them for the parents specifically. So if a parent is referred to me and they say, hey, I'm going through this stuff with my child, I like need some help, I don't really know what to do, I actually start with a really in-depth parent assessment. So I want to know, like, how are they currently functioning? Like, what's the impact been to them, and any symptoms that they might be experiencing. Oftentimes are symptoms of depression, symptoms of anxiety, and more often than not, trauma symptoms. Even if it doesn't meet full criteria for like post-traumatic stress disorder, there's a lot of underlying trauma symptoms as well. And sometimes parents have their own history of trauma, so you've got that in the background. So I assess their parenting history, their approach, their strengths, and how they were parented and what worked and what didn't work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I get really specific on, so what is your child struggling with and how are those things intersecting? So when your child engages in X behavior, what happens for you? So I do this really thorough sort of DBT based assessment. It's called a chain analysis. And a chain analysis is really breaking down the prompting event, the emotions, thoughts and judgments, and one's own behavior and the consequences of that behavior. And I find out like their own patterns, what happens for them, and mm-hmm. Are they shutting down? Are they avoiding? Are they giving in? Are they trying to over control? Like, what are the things that parents are doing to manage both their child's behavior, but also their own emotions? Mm-hmm. And I do this in a way that's really non-judgmental. There's no finger pointing. There's no blame. There's no like, well, you're doing this, and that's why your kid is doing this. It's no like, oh my gosh, of course you're having this reaction. Your child's engaging in this really like terrifying, scary behavior, and you're doing the best you can with the resources mm-hmm. that you have. And so I try to help them understand how these patterns of communication and patterns of behavior and sometimes patterns of dysregulation are created in the family system and how they get maintained. And so first starts with understanding and assessment. And then if oftentimes, because I will say this, I'm going to step back a second. There's like 3 stages of parent coaching. One is in crisis mode. And that's when I get most of parents reach out to me. Mm-hmm. I got 4 referrals this week. I'm like, it's summertime. Things are supposed to slow down, everybody. Yeah. And like 4 parents are like, I need to see you for parent coaching, like crisis is happening. So normally I enter into crisis and I have to assess what's happening and then we kind of get to work. But I teach parents the same skills, like how to tolerate their own distress, how to regulate their own emotions, So usually it starts in crisis mode. Then it kind of things settle down a little bit. And then I can do a little bit deeper work with the parent on their own well-being. And more often than not, actually, I'm starting to get a lot of early intervention cases. So like parents of little 7, 8, 9-year-olds are going, hey, my kiddo's super sensitive and has really bad anxiety or OCD, or maybe they're on the autism spectrum. We need help now, which is great. So that there's kind of some balance there. But yeah, so I start with assessment. I want to understand the parent's experience. That's so important, and how they've been impacted. And then we start to tease apart what's working and what's not working when it comes to their responses with their kids. Not that it's wrong or they're doing anything bad, because often like the strategies that most parents would use would work with 9 kids out of 10, right? Mm-hmm. But you have a kiddo who's super sensitive, super reactive, has a hard time calming themselves down, or they've had trauma, or they have other sort of challenges, they OCD, anxiety, what have you. It just makes things really complicated, right? And so all of our kind of go-to parenting strategies, or what our parents did, or the things that we would normally resort to, I'm going to take your phone away, or no TV, or no video games, right? That stuff does not work with these kiddos, these 1 or 2 kids out of 10, right? So all of their normal parenting strategies that I think are totally fine, super effective, 9 times out of 10, just completely fall flat with the kiddo with these more severe issues. And so we just have to assess together what's working, what responses are working, and what's not working. And then I help them develop skills plans of like how to manage, because they can't change their child's behavior. We can't change anyone else's behavior, but we can address our own behavior. So the whole goal is to empower parents with the skills and tools that they need to take care of themselves, regulate their own experience, and then have a set of tools to respond more effectively to their child who's struggling. So there's a lot of validation training that goes into that, a lot of teaching parents how to establish like kind of effective boundaries and structure in a way that's more values-based and not reactive and coming from like their own distress or fear or anger. So it's really helping parents, like once the crisis is over, I help them slow down and reevaluate their own values like what values feel really important to them personally and what values feel really important for them in the context of their family, and help them develop tools to parent in line with those values, right? So how to hold boundaries and say no, even though your kiddo's pulling on your heartstrings and making you feel really bad, or they're pestering you and you just are overwhelmed and exhausted and you're like, fine, do whatever you want, right? All the things we all do as parents, like we all kind of have our breakdown moments, but it's helping them more often than not be really intentional and mindful about why they're, responding in the ways that they are, from a place that's like skillful and from their own values. So that's a lot of the work that I do. And then if I work with parents longer than that, it's usually like a deep dive into like their own self-compassion work. I feel that is so important. It's like often the missing ingredient in all mental health challenges is like a fundamental lack of self-compassion. And so I try to do that work to help parents manage, especially moms. I was mentioning moms, I think, carry so much guilt, so much shame. They feel powerless, so they have to like understand what's happening for their child in some way. And so what better explanation is there than it's my fault, or I did something wrong, or if only I had done this, or I should have known that. So really try to work moving parents from like powerlessness and blame to empowerment and like values driven parenting.
I think you said a lot, and to be honest, I can relate to everything that you just said. This is how I've been trained as a board certified health and wellness coach to work with my clients as well. And, really focus on the values, like what's important to them. What do they want to be a priority in their life? And really coming from a place of no judgment and validating, because I know this is something I've struggled with my whole life, is not being seen and heard enough. And I was like, wow, when I was going through my training to become a board certified health and wellness coach, all this like really hit home for me. And it really opened my eyes to a really effective way to help my clients. And this is like everything, even my group fitness clients who I don't go too in depth with, like in relation to what their values are. I don't have them fill out giant intake forms, long intake forms like I do my one-on-one private clients, but I still get to know them and get to know what's important to them. And, the ball's in their court, they're in the driver's seat, and I'm here, like you said, to help them learn how to be more compassionate with themselves. So, and I am so grateful that you mentioned that you've brought up men in all this too, and how you mentioned that boys and girls are equally have experienced basically an equal amount of like body image issues. Because, I work with, in my private practice, I work primarily with women. That's my specialty. However, I do have some men in my group fitness class, and I noticed just having some private one-on-one conversations with them, I've noticed that they struggle with the same things, that women do. And it's just, we all just want to be seen and heard and validated, whether we're an introvert or an extrovert, or want to be the life of the party, or just want to kind of hide behind everyone else. We all want to be seen and heard to some extent.
Yeah. I think it comes down to being able to like genuinely connect with others in a more authentic way. And so many people, like shame and guilt gets in the way of that, right? Gets in the way of more authentic connection. So I've been working a lot with a lot of women as well. So same thing. I work with a lot of dads in practice, but And there are some dads who like they're on the front lines of it and are like attend every parent meeting and are like in it. And some even single dads that are like holding down, everything.
Yeah.
But I would say a majority of my clients, at least the parents who come to me, it's often the women, the moms, they're juggling all these different components in their lives. Like I feel like women have often like 4 things they're juggling, the needs of 4 different like groups. They've got their child's needs, and that's significant, especially if they have some challenges or learning differences or mental health struggles, or 2 kids who have those issues or 3 kids who have those issues. It just like grows exponentially, right? So they're juggling their child's needs, and when they're in crisis, it's sort of like all other needs kind of go by the wayside. And then after that, it's the rest of their family and their partner or spouse or romantic relationships, right? Juggling those needs. And then it's their other responsibilities, which is like could be their household responsibilities or just like keeping everyone's calendar, like,
Yeah.
in check, their own career, their own like responsibilities, right? So they've got all these other needs. And then what comes last? Their needs.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've done a group with parents and the moms are like, wait, we have needs. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
you too.
Yeah.
It turns out. But there is this like implicit myth and bias that it is selfish to put your own needs first. That your job, especially as a woman and a caretaker, is to put everyone else's needs before your own. And that is inherently problematic. Problematic. Because, I mean, every airline, every plane we've ever been on has figured it out, right? What are we told to do with the oxygen mask? Like if the little, yellow and clear oxygen mask falls out, like what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to put it on ourselves first so that then we can put the oxygen mask on, our child or someone else who needs us to help or support, right? And so this idea metaphorically of like, you have to actually slow down and take care of yourself and your own needs and your own emotional needs so that you can be in the best position to support your child, your family, and a lot of women that I work with are kind of in this generation where they're caretaking their parents.
Yes.
And caretaking their children, teens, or young adults who are struggling, right? So they're like in this middle generation caretaking on both sides, which just leads to like, such caretaker burnout and fatigue. So the women I see, they're struggling, like their sleep, their eating, their taking care of their physical bodies is struggling, they're just being impacted in all areas, which have, as you know, such profound long-term consequences of living under like that much chronic stress. The impact of that physically and emotionally is just, it's too much. So once kind of crisis settles, I really try to do an in-depth assessment of like, how are these women functioning in all domains of their life? How are they doing in recreation and fun? How are they doing with friendship? How are they doing with like hobbies and interests? How are they doing in terms of their professional or educational, values? How are they doing? How's their financial health? Like I really kind of assess all of these domains. And then we establish like short-term goals, like, okay, let's get them back into their hobbies and interests that they used to be really passionate about. Let's build in relaxation techniques. Let's build in more authentic connection with other women and communities. Get them in proactively engaged in activities that are pleasant and produce positive emotions. Like it is okay for women to do things for themselves so that they can continue to show up for their families and prevent their own burnout. It's like, it is essential. So I'm really trying to change that message, that it's not selfish. It is critical and essential to the entire family's well-being that the mother is taking care of herself.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'm not a mom myself, but I find myself just wanting to make sure my husband's needs are met before mine. Like, did you get enough food? Did you do this? Did you, how are you feeling? You go hang out with your friends and I'll go to the grocery store and I'll go run all the errands. And thankfully my husband wants to help. and wants me to take care of myself first. He's very supportive from that perspective. It's really
Bless
just,
him.
I
It's so
know, I know. I'm so grateful that I found him. And yeah, because I know there's a lot of women that struggle to get their husbands or partners on board with housework and just sharing the the day-to-day admin tasks. Like, that's what my husband calls them. He's like, there's so many admin tasks that we have to do throughout our
yeah.
daily life. Like, I just want to go have fun.
Yeah.
But
It requires like so much executive functioning and so
yeah,
much mental energy. And now
yeah,
you're doing that for like every person in your
yeah,
family system. It's too much. It's overwhelming.
yeah,
And there's a lot of women out there that are doing this completely independently. Like they're
yeah,
holding down. I mean, so many of my clients are like very high performing, successful women who are like power women, like C-suite executives and,
mm-hmm.
prestigious university professors. And, like we're talking these like boss babe women, who are then
Yeah,
also managing the challenges of their child's like mental health crisis. It's a lot and it cannot be done alone. And women need a village. And this
yes,
is actually where I started putting retreats together because
yes,
I really wanted to like create community. That was like just I don't know. It's been a long-term goal of mine for so
mm-hmm.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I want to hear more about that, but first, I just want to share this story that I just watched this video on YouTube yesterday, this news story. I can't remember if it was a year ago or this happened recently, but this mom went to Disney World by herself. I think she's an influencer, a social media influencer. So she part of the reason she did it, one of the reasons she did it was it was like a business trip, but the one of the main reasons was she wanted to go have fun by herself.
Mhm.
And this poor woman,
Oh, I think I know where this is going. Oh,
she got lit up on social media with
oh,
terrible comments saying she was the worst mom ever for going to
oh,
Disney World without her
oh,
kids.
geez.
I was appalled.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, seriously, you guys are criticizing this woman. And she had a trip planned like 2 or 3 weeks after this with like the whole family, her husband and kids. They were all going to come back to Disney World together. It just blew me away how negative these people were. I'm like, she deserves to put herself first. She needs to take care of herself because if she doesn't, then she can't take care of her family in an effective way, you
Yeah.
know? And I remember growing up when my mom, we'd always ask her, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Mother's Day? Her answer was always the same. I'm not kidding you, like year after year, peace and quiet. I just want to be by myself.
I
And
love
we
it.
were like, go for it, do it. My mom took her baths most nights to relax. And I was like, when I was a kid, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what peace and quiet meant, what she meant
Right.
by that. But as an adult and as a woman, I'm like, I get it.
She
Like
was on to something. How
yeah, I know.
progressive.
What's that?
I said, how progressive.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, really? Okay, then you get your peace and quiet. But so tell us more about the retreat that you just hosted recently.
Yes. Oh, it was lovely. But first, I just want to say
Oh, yeah.
that story you just told me like
Oh,
breaks my heart. Like,
I know.
also, I just think that's the other problem I see with social media is like people are so quick to judge and say the harshest, most critical, hurtful, judgmental, honestly, half the time nasty things to people that they don't know anything
Mhm.
about,
Yeah.
right? They don't understand the context, they don't have all the information. And I don't know if people feel emboldened to sit behind their little screen and like just judge people's lives without understanding what anyone has been through, what they're going through. it's really heartbreaking. And I think we're seeing that now more than ever with, the current political climate as it is. There's so much of that judgment, criticism, and negativity.
Mhm.
And that's heartbreaking. This woman should be able to celebrate, like, oh my
I
gosh, I just did a day by myself at Disney World, like, woo, I needed this. Like, who
know.
doesn't need a day in the happiest place on earth, and to do that without all the responsibility and to, enjoy herself.
Yeah.
I'm
I
at
mean,
this.
mhm.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I've kind of made it a personal mission. So my daughter, she's 25 now. And I mentioned earlier that I started young. So I've kind of had this unique opportunity while all my friends are having kids and babies and raising little ones. I'm kind of just living my best life right now and making
Yeah.
up for lost times. And I don't feel bad about it. I'm like, I
Mhm.
did what I needed to do at the time. And but there's always been this little part of me that's like, I need to take care of myself. Like, life is stressful, especially, getting my life as a single mom and going to school and working with really intense clients. And
Mhm.
I was like, something's got to give, the impact to therapists or first responders, medical providers. It's profound, and therapists are super susceptible to vicarious trauma symptoms,
Mhm.
so actually, the National Association of Social Workers, I just learned this recently, even though I have been a social worker for 20 years. In the code of ethics that we all abide by, I just did a training on this. About a year or two ago, they integrated into our code of ethics that it is our ethical responsibility to take care of ourselves and to engage in our own active
Wow.
self-care. And it was like, if you are not taking care of yourself, how can you care for these like underserved populations, vulnerable people, the clients that you serve to the best of your ability? So you have an ethical obligation to take care of yourself and to intentionally and actively prioritize your own health and well-being. Like, that's incredible. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so if the National Association of Social Workers can make this an ethical requirement, why shouldn't mothers or fathers
Mhm.
or parents also be given permission to take care of themselves and engage in active self-care, whatever that means, for
Mhm.
them? And care means different things for different people. But I just thought that was great, and when
Yeah.
I read my mom groups, I'm like, did you know the National Association of Social Workers made it an ethical requirement to take care of yourself? And they're like, oh. I'm like, so you also have permission. Like, this, you
Yeah.
are your family social worker. You are a
Yeah.
social worker, you're a case manager, you're first
Mhm.
responder, you're a teacher. Like, parents are wearing so many hats these days. Like,
Mhm.
self-care like is critical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And we could go on. We could do an entire episode on how women should stop asking permission to do these
Yeah.
things. Just
Yeah.
you just you have permission to do it. Yeah, we should not have to get permission. We should just do it. But it's kind of ingrained in us where we feel like we have to ask for permission. I mean,
Yeah.
this could be I don't want to get too off topic, but this could be a topic for an entire 60-minute podcast episode, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
just
I agree
just
100%.
about
And
that.
it's also that external message. So all that critical, shame-inducing feedback for this poor mom who wanted to go to Disneyland. Like, good for her. Do you know how many times I've been to Disneyland without my daughter? Like, I would have some harsh criticisms.
Yeah.
Has she gone a handful of times? Of course. But have I gone on some solo trips? Absolutely. So I'm right there with this woman who was just berated and belittled online. Um, but not only is sometimes putting yourself first met with criticism and judgment from others, but that's all been internalized. So there's
Yeah.
this internalized sense of like, oh, I shouldn't do that. This is wrong. I can't. I'm being a bad mom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So going back to the self-compassion work, self-compassion is about treating yourself with kindness and treating yourself as you would treat
Mhm.
a good friend. And that involves giving yourself permission. And that is really important. And it's not only do you have to give yourself permission, but then you have to sort of be equipped to manage the negative
Yeah.
responses that you might be met with when you start to change the status quo. Really. Oh, wow. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this retreat that I led, oh, I mean, it just it felt so magical. So part of my own self-care as a clinician, especially when I was working in residential treatment programs with like, highly suicidal, self-harming, traumatized youth, like I often didn't have a lot of time, and I was raising 3 kiddos. And so I belonged to the same group that put my needs very last after everybody else's. And I would just get so burnt out, and it was affecting my health. And so the one thing I started doing for myself, probably maybe 6 years ago or so, maybe 7 years ago now, is I started going on retreats. And I would find a retreat in an amazing place where I could go by myself for a full week and do a yoga wellness retreat. I'm also like a trained yoga instructor, but I don't teach in like a studio or anything. It's more like integrated into my work. But I would go on these yoga retreats that were focused on wellness. And there's one I went to, it was so amazing. It was a women's energy retreat in Spain, led by this amazing woman. And I was the only woman from the States. It was a very international group, people coming from all over. And that whole time I was there, I didn't share my background, my story, my work. I don't think I told anyone I was a therapist. Like, we were just all there as women. And we went through these practices together and these really amazing experiences. And at the very end, I felt like I just got to know like the essence of all of these women, even though I knew nothing about their stories, and vice versa. And at the very end of this retreat, I will never forget this. She had us each sit in the middle of the circle on our closing day, and she had everyone reflect how they felt about the woman in the circle. And it was like such an emotional experience, because here I am like sitting in the middle of the circle, and these women are saying like the kindest, sweetest, most compassionate things about me. But I also sensed, I'm like, these women, they know me. They know who I am authentically at my core, and they don't know anything about my story. Right. And it was such a unique experience to be to your point, so seen for who I am at my core in terms of how I show up in relationship and my values without knowing any of my story was like a profound experience for me. And I thought, I need more of this in my life. And I was like, I want to someday create this experience for more people. Like, more people need to be authentically seen. And sometimes I think in order to do that, you have to like be removed from your day-to-day life. And you have to get out of the admin tasks. You have to get out of like the day-to-day and like all the roles and masks and hats that we wear and all the plates that we spin to like kind of reconnect with yourself. And that's so, for me, going on retreat was like my yearly 1 week of self-care. And it was like I jammed it all in there so that I could sustain me the rest of the year. And I was like, okay, that's not enough. I clearly need to do more of these, or I need to figure out how to do more self-care throughout the year. But I knew at that retreat that I would someday lead retreats for more people. Like, it's just been this vision. So then fast forward a couple of years, I work with all these incredible moms, these amazing women. And I feel like sometimes I'm doing the same work with everyone. And I'm just, and they all feel so alone in it, right? They feel heard and seen by me, but they're feeling so alone in the rest of their lives, right? And they're kind of managing all these things alone. And I was thinking, if I could just bring this mom together with this mom, if I could just bring this mom together with this mom, like if I could bring these women together, so I just had this kind of like fantasy. And it was funny. Every time I'd go to a yoga studio and I would be laying in Shavasana, I would get this flash image, I'm not even kidding, of all of my women clients together at a big dinner table laughing together.
Oh my gosh.
I just kept getting this image because I have so much like love and compassion for these women who don't know how amazing they are. And I was working through guilt and shame and their trauma and the feelings of isolation and being stigmatized, like all the same stuff with the, like, regardless of the situation or their own life experiences, that impact is the same. And I just kept having this image, and I was like, I wish I could bring all these women together. And then I was like, really want to run a retreat, but I have no idea how to do that. So then I'm, trying to learn how to do all the things. And then I'm like, I've never actually done that in my life. I'm usually like, I want to do this. I have no idea how I'll do it. Let me figure it out. So I was like, why don't I just use that same approach? Like, let's just decide I'm going to do it, and then I'll figure it out as I go. So what I did is I sent an email separately to 15 moms that I work with that I felt like if they could come together and be in community, it would be like such an impactful experience. And so I sent that message, and my goal was like, if 5 women came back to me and said like, I will do this, then I'll figure out how to lead a retreat. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I don't want to spend months and months and months avoiding doing it and figuring it out if like no one's going to come. So I emailed 15 women, and what's so interesting is like there were 4 in particular that I was like, I just don't think that they could either come because of the sort of stage of crisis that they're in, mm-hmm. or that they are ready for this kind of experience. But the other 11 women, I was like, if any combination of these 11 women came together, this would just be like such a magical experience. And all 11 of those women said, sign me up. And the 4 I anticipated were not ready said, oh, this sounds nice, but no, thank you. And I was like, okay, no problem. So I put out dates that would work and for everyone 6 months into the future. And there was one long weekend that worked for all 11 women. So I was like, okay, this is our weekend. And then I literally reverse engineered and planned this retreat. And it was focused on self-compassion, self-care, this idea of permission. So we had body work, we did yoga practices. I brought this amazing retreat leader from the UK that I had been on retreat with. And I told her the mission. I was like, I have this crazy idea. I want to bring all my people together. You were so good at what you do with the body work. And also I can't pay you because I'm doing this for free. So what do you think? And I just like, there's no way she's going to do this. And she did. I was like, I will pay for you to come and pay for you to do it, but I can't pay you. Like, I'm not going to profit from this retreat. This is my opportunity to kind of learn how to do it. And, so I was just really transparent with all the women. I was like, I've never done this before. So like, it's going to be at cost. Everything was super transparent. And so she agreed to come. I booked her flights immediately and booked my flights. And then I reverse engineered the whole experience. So we did daily movement practices. We did journaling. We did guided meditations. We did deep self-compassion work. These women laughed together, cried together. And then I turned around, like I got this restaurant to do this like amazing farm and sea to table dining experience. And they custom made this menu just for the moms. It said, this is your weekend to nourish your bodies and your souls and enjoy your experience. It was like so sweet. And there was this like amazing meal, and they catered to everyone's dietary needs. And I look around, and we're at this big long table. There's 13 of us sitting there, and they're all laughing and smiling and sharing their stories. And it was like the same image. I'm about to cry. It was the same image.
You're making me cry, Candace. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it.
It was the image that I kept having. I would slow down and do my own practice. It was like bringing these women together. And it was just so powerful. And they did Lomi energetic body work, and we did these like healing circles, and we went on a witch tour because it was in Salem, Massachusetts, to learn about the really powerful women of our history that have shaped our country, like these kind of fierce women. And the whole weekend was all around female empowerment, connection, and it was just so special. And these women didn't have to it was the same experience. They didn't have to share their stories unless they wanted to. And everyone had permission for every practice we did. They could lean in, they could lean out, or they could let go, right? And really to give themselves permission that everything was optional. They could participate as much or as little. It's like they had to, be aware of how you're feeling, what's coming up for you. And if you need to step out, you need to step out. And if you want to lean in, lean in. And it was so powerful. And at the end of the retreat, we were all standing in a circle, and everyone was sharing their wish for themselves moving forward. And they all were like, will you do this again for us next year? What was so sweet is Stacey Barham from the UK, who leads retreats through Oso Yoga. She's amazing. She had told me the day before, she's like, this is incredible. I will come back every year. Of course, she said it in a beautiful British accent, but she was like, I will come here every year to do this. Like, these women need this. and I want to be a part of it. So she had already said, I think they would do this again. And I was like, oh, I don't know. We'll see. And at the end, they're like, will you guys do this again for us next year? It's
Oh
like,
my
oh,
goodness.
yeah. So it was so special. And now I do monthly groups. I call it our tribe groups, and I do it for free, and it's to help them integrate, and we're continuing to work on mindful self-compassion every month, so they get to see each other and check in, like what's happening in their lives, and it's really special. I've done a million groups in my career, and I've never looked more forward to a group meeting. It's just absolutely lovely. Yeah, so I'm excited to do more of that kind of stuff, like a really therapeutic kind of deep
Yeah.
dive.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just want to thank you for organizing that and just really like you were basically following your vision
Yeah.
and you figured out a way to make it happen. And these women are incredibly grateful for you for doing that.
I'm grateful for them. They're
And
incredible.
yeah, there's something amazing um, that happens. Think, I believe, when women get together and have the freedom to be
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable
Yeah.
and transparent with other women. And I'm a big proponent of women, connecting with other women. And I've always loved having my girlfriends around.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel like it's more difficult as we get older,
Sure.
especially, as adults, we lose touch and we get married, we move away from each other, and some have kids, and then dealing like with our age too, like aging parents, and
Mm-hmm.
it just we have to be more intentional to make it happen. And you provided that space and that opportunity for those women, which is incredible. And I also love how you were like, all your clients so well on such a deep level that you were like, oh, this woman should meet this woman because they can
Mm-hmm.
really connect. I
Yeah.
could see them having a special bond,
It-
because of what they're both going through. And
Mhm.
I just think just what you do and the intuition that you have with that is incredible.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was really cute on the second to last day. I did this like choose your own adventure, right? It was like I gave
Mhm.
everyone like 6 hours so that the weekend didn't feel too packed with activities and things that we were
Mhm.
doing. So it was a choose your own adventure day, and I gave them a menu of options of like, here's all the cool things you can do in the city. You can you can go to this historic site or this museum trip, or you can just hang out at the pool, or whatever it is. And three of the women that I like knew would just hit it off sent a selfie of the three of them at this restaurant I had recommended, where all these really historical famous things had happened, like Edgar Allan Poe had done a reading there, and Frederick Douglass had spoken there, and Alexander Graham Bell had dialed the first international phone call there. It was like this really
Oh
cool
my goodness.
historic building that's been turned into
Wow.
like a seafood restaurant. Yeah, it's really neat. And so they sent a picture of the three of them, and they just looked like college best friends who are like
Oh,
reuniting, and they had never met before. And they all had unique stories in the context of what they had gone through with their children, and it's so interesting that they gravitated toward each other because they all had similar experiences. And one of the moms afterwards was like, going to lunch with those women and hearing their stories made me realize, like, maybe I don't have to be so hard on myself, because I didn't have a single
mhm.
judgment about what they had gone through. I did not think it was their fault. And so it was like, maybe I can make space to be kinder to myself. And it was just like, oh, it's like all the things I was hoping would happen like came together. And it was funny too. It was like a lunar eclipse that weekend, which I did not. It was like right before the spring equinox. All these astrological things I did not plan, but like that just happened to be the weekend that everyone could come together. So it was just all these funny little
Yeah.
alignments that could not have envisioned going any better. Yeah. So now Stacy and I, we are excited. We're going to do an international retreat. And this will be open, not just like clients, but like just adventure based, like people coming together for community and just authentic connection, and to just, I don't know, have a break from their day-to-day life and just be themselves. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to continue doing that. I think if I can do that, get up to doing that once or twice a year, that will feel really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Retreats is definitely in my vision for my health and fitness
Awesome.
coaching practice one day. Yeah. Maybe we can connect
Maybe
and
we can,
collaborate on one, but
cool.
yeah, I'm not quite at that point yet. But I do.
I didn't think I was either. I had zero idea what I was doing. So
Yeah, that's why I was like, when you mentioned that, when we hopped on Zoom, a while back, I was like, I cannot wait to ask Candace how she made this happen. So thank you for
just
sharing that.
so
Yeah.
see who wants to come, and then figure it out from there.
Yeah. And I love that too. That's kind of how I run my business too, is I always put feelers out there and ask women, hey, this is something I'm considering. How do you feel about this? So cool. Great. Awesome. Well, Candace, is there anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered a lot of ground in a pretty short period of time. Yeah, there's always more to say, but
Sure.
I just really appreciated having this opportunity. And yeah, I haven't done a podcast before, so this was such a fun invitation to receive. And I don't know, I feel very passionate about the work that I do, and don't actually think I get to talk about it enough. So this was actually a really nice little outlet for that. So thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. And I was really excited that you agreed to come on. And because I really sense your passion for what you do. And I can tell that you're really, really, really good at what you do based on how you speak about your work. And you just kind of know if someone is really good at what they do and really have that passion and drive behind it, or the opposite end of the spectrum, and you have that passion and drive for sure. So
yeah, it's not easy work, but I love it, and it keeps me going. Yeah,
yeah, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, Candace, for coming on the Wellness Abundance podcast. And I look forward to future collaborations, whether it be more episodes or a retreat in the future.
That'd be amazing. Melissa, thank you so much for having me. It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.